Hello, I'm Antonio Mora. This is the newsandnews.com day in brief on Thursday, January 31st at about 5:30 p.m. Unfortunately, the meteorologists were right. Cotton, Minnesota made it to minus 56 degrees, just 4 degrees from the state's all-time low. Illinois did see its lowest temperature ever in Mount Carroll, a small town 120 miles west of Chicago. It was minus 38 there. Some cities, including Rockford and Moline, Illinois, along with Cedar Rapids, Iowa, broke records, never having seen cold like this. At times, the country's third largest city looked like a ghost town with almost everything closed and authorities asking people to stay home. O'Hare Airport had to cancel 1,400 flights. And as air travelers know, when O'Hare sneezes, all of the country's commercial airline system catches a cold. At least 11 people have died in the Midwest. Very low temperatures extend all the way to the Atlantic. President Trump dodged a question today about whether he had confidence in his intelligence chiefs. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is blasting the president for his Twitter tirade against the intelligence community after they contradicted him on major foreign policy issues. Trump went as far as insulting his director of national intelligence and the heads of the CIA and FBI, telling them they should go back to school and calling them passive and naive. Now, Schumer is calling on Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats to stage an intervention with the president, criticizing Trump as extraordinarily inappropriate. Look for more fireworks from Trump because GOP leaders on Capitol Hill are frustrated, and they moved today to reclaim more power for the Senate over foreign policy. In a bipartisan 68-23 vote, senators approved a non-binding measure that's a strong rebuke to Trump's proposals to withdraw troops from Syria and Afghanistan. If you think you've heard this before, you probably have. Nancy Pelosi today repeated that there will be no money for a wall in any congressional deal to avoid another government shutdown. That followed Trump comments that his wall will get done one way or another. He even seemed to change his tune because after having said for a couple of weeks that other border barriers might be sufficient, today he said that anything short of a wall wouldn't work. Get ready for an emergency declaration to build the wall and the court battle that will follow. Trump said he will think about asking the FBI to review its use of force after the agency's militarized raid on Roger Stone's house in Florida. Trump says, quote, he's speaking for a lot of people who were very disappointed to see it go down that way. Senator Graham seems to agree. He has requested an FBI briefing on the tactics used. The U.S. recognized interim president of Venezuela, Juan Guaidó, accused security forces loyal to Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro of showing up at his home and harassing his wife and baby. Guaidó also says the opposition is speaking to the army, which so far continues to prop up Maduro. Meanwhile, Venezuela will take 15 tons of gold, worth more than $500 million from its central bank, and sell it to the UAE. It may be another desperate move to keep Venezuela somewhat solvent, but nobody would be surprised if a good chunk of it ends up in the pockets of Maduro and his cronies. The U.S. military says it has killed 24 al-Shabaab extremists with an airstrike in Somalia. The U.S. is increasing the frequency of attacks on the terrorist group. This was the 9th airstrike just this month. Al-Shabaab has been severely weakened over the last few years, but it still has plenty of power to launch murderous assaults on soft targets in Somalia and Kenya. It claimed responsibility for the attack on a hotel complex in Nairobi this month that killed 21. Watch for the U.S. to announce the suspension of its obligations under the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty with Russia. Talks have failed. The U.S. claims a new Russian missile violates the treaty, but the Kremlin has not admitted wrongdoing. The Dow was down very slightly today, but the Nasdaq jumped about 1.4%, and the S&P 500 rose little less than 1% for its best January since 1987. Stocks were fueled by strong earnings from Facebook and GE. After hours, Amazon announced a big jump in revenues during the holiday season, beating estimates across the board, but its first quarter estimates came in below what was expected. If you're my age, pretty much everybody you know is on some sort of anti-cholesterol or blood pressure medication. But I was still surprised to see a new study from the American Heart Association that shows almost half of all Americans aged 20 and older are dealing with cardiovascular disease. The large majority of them have blood pressure problems. The number of people with cardiovascular disease has grown dramatically, in part because a stricter definition of hypertension was approved in 2017. In our alternate universes segment, the great divide between conservative and liberal media, a problem that crosses the divide. Reporters and correspondents who warn you not to go outside because the cold is dangerous, even though they're outside apparently with no trouble. Same for reporters during hurricanes. In both cases, reporters usually have some protection, something they rarely tell you about. Those reporters end up being hazardous to your health because they don't tell you the whole story. A notable exception this week was CBS's DeMarco Morgan. While reporting on the polar vortex, he showed how he had a heated tent just feet away that he could pop into and stay warm and avoid frostbite. Most reporters probably had a warm truck nearby. There's no shame in admitting it. On the contrary, it's the right thing to do, guys. Finally, I'll put it bluntly, after Tom Brady's recent performances, Patriots owner Robert Kraft would be a fool if he didn't figure out how to keep Brady as his team's QB. Kraft now says he wants to keep the team's symmetry and chemistry intact and is open to signing quarterback Brady to another contract extension. We'll have all those stories and much more updated around the clock 7 days a week on newsandnews.com, where you will find all you need to know in one place. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the right of your screen just below this video. Please follow us on Facebook at Real News and News, and follow me on Twitter at AMoraTV. I'll see you again tomorrow.